joined today by Malcolm Palle, co-founder and executive chairman of Coinsilium. Thanks for joining me, Malcolm.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, Darren.
You announced yesterday a Bitcoin purchase of 57.54 Bitcoin, taking your total holdings to just shy of 182. This is your largest purchase to date, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a big slug considering compared to the other ones we've been buying, which have been kind of fairly steady. You get to a point where you got we I want to say critical mass. We're nowhere near the potential for critical mass, but obviously we're scaling up. So we raised 5.5 million in a placing and a wrap offer, and the longer you go, the more you keep doing these things, the more you can the bigger proportion you can allocate towards buying Bitcoin. So we're at that point where that big chunk, there's no point in hanging around. Might as well put it out, get it in
Hmm.
the treasury. And we move it as fast as we can. It obviously takes time for the funds to clear, and then we've got to get the funds from our bank to the OTC desk to actually execute the trade. Um, but yeah, it's kind of a chunky one. We just wanted to demonstrate we're not sort of drip feeding this into the market. We're doing it with commitment and intent, and that's hopefully what I don't know why people were. I think some people were surprised. I'm surprised that they were surprised because that was always our intent, and we're not making investments in anything else at the moment, as I keep saying. It's
Hmm.
all dedicated towards buying Bitcoin for our treasury.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in terms of actually buying the Bitcoin, then how
Yeah.
do you actually manage that process? I mean, like obviously the price fluctuates. You've got a pot of money. You can
Yeah.
deploy it all or some of it. How do you actually decide
Um,
what amount you want to spend?
okay, so one of the fundamental items underpinning our whole strategy is our policy.
Mm.
And we have this on our website. It's our Bitcoin Treasury policy and strategy. And we buy in accordance with that. So those are the rules and the parameters that are set out. So what we don't do is we don't do things opportunistically. We don't sort of say, price is cheap, let's buy some, because this is a long-term play. What we do is, if our commitment is to deploy the cash we have into Bitcoin and combined with that, the price on the market is conducive for that, we will do that accordingly. We don't buy just to get just a buzz in the market or something like that. We're doing it with commitment, with a long-term purpose. So it is in accordance with our treasury policy. There's not really much more to say than that because, as I say, as a long game, this 57 Bitcoin we bought increased the holdings we have by 50%. So, as a relatively small treasury, it made a big difference and big impact. But we use the custodians we use. It's all set out in our treasury policy, and we have to do everything from purchasing the Bitcoin to storing the Bitcoin to custody has to be done in accordance with our policy so that no one can sort of make a random decision and wake up. And it's not about buying it, it's also about selling it. So, we have that contingency. We have no intention
Mm.
of selling any because there's no need to sell any. And certainly not at this point in time, it's all about accumulation and scale.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you mentioned about, say, buying potentially with the
Yeah.
price dips there. Obviously, the price has dipped recently,
Yeah.
back from its all-time high. Not an awful lot. But where do you see Bitcoin going in the
Yeah.
future and the market in general?
Yeah. Oh, so in this in this instance, we got a bit lucky with the price because we bought it Monday morning just before we announced it. That's when the as soon as we had the clear funds. So over the weekend, the price pulled back and we got lucky. If the
Mm.
funds were cleared on Friday, we would have bought them on Friday. We just, we don't sort of sit around and hope for the best. But the market is it's going through a little bit of a kind of a bit of uncertainty at the moment, but that's only because it's hit an all-time high and it's come off there and it has to sort of decide when it's going to start moving through again, which could be any time. I think there's a lot of external factors. There's a lot of moving parts to it. Long term, medium term, we expect the price to continue to move up. When you zoom out and look at the chart over the course of the year, it's very impressive. When you look at it over the course of 2 weeks, it looks like it's chop. And it's not really, when you have this kind of philosophy and you have this strategy of actually acquiring Bitcoin because you believe in it and you know what it represents. You don't consider the short-term chop and all that stuff. You just go in and buy what you can when you have funds to do so. But the general market, I expect us to it's a bit of a pause before it goes through again. It could pull back a bit. Doesn't phase us in the
Mm.
slightest, really, because the fundamentals are all in place for more continued moves. So yeah, I'm very positive about the market. If maybe we might have a little bit of a lull over the next few weeks of the summer, it'll pick up again.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so Malcolm, what differentiates Coinsilium from other Bitcoin treasury companies, especially given, it's becoming quite a competitive space now?
Yeah, it's a bit crowded. We expect this. Anything that sort of catches on, you always get people jumping on the bandwagon. But as I said in a previous interview, this game is not a flavor of the month thing. I think what differentiates us particularly is we've been in the digital asset space for 10 years, and we understand the space. Bitcoin is part of that space. It's a major focus for us. We don't sort of we kind of it's part of our lives. It has been for the last 10, 15, certainly for me, 14 years personally. But it's really that experience. And also, I think at this stage, it probably doesn't resonate too far, other than people sort of get confidence of the fact that we understand we could hit the ground running. We know exactly what to do with custody. We know exactly how to judge how we enter the space. We know the players. So everything we've done is drawing on our own experience. I think that's the major thing. A lot of people who come into the space, if they've gone to the trouble of actually learning what the hurdles are, what the issues are, then good for them, because they'll more likely to make a success of it. If they've just come into the space because ultimately, they just see it's a phase or a trend,
Mm.
and they wanted to jump in on, and it's a flavor of month thing, then they've got a steep learning curve, and also they've got to understand there's more to it than just buying some Bitcoin and sitting on it, because it looks very simple. It's not. It's
Mm.
it's about how you handle the twists and turns and everything else that comes along. At the moment, it's a good time to get into it if you know what you're doing, and it's a good time for us to be kind of where we are, because we can see what's on the horizon, and there'll be lots of things that I don't want to give too much away, because competitors could be listening, but there's lots of things that are coming in, particularly with stable coins, which people aren't thinking about how they will impact Bitcoin, or our kind of potential for actually leveraging our position with Bitcoin. But boy, there's some stuff happening there that is going to they're going to be game changers, and people might scratch their head, but just watch this space and see what happens. So yeah, that's I think the differentiator is mainly our experience and understanding of the space, and also I don't think people can look at us and sort of doubt our understanding and commitment and belief in Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, sort of related to that, I think I saw that you're now the second largest UK Bitcoin treasury play and ranked 69 globally according to
Yeah.
BitcoinTreasuries.net. Are you sort of pleased with that position in the market?
Yeah. Are you a football fan, Darren?
Loosely.
Okay. Well, if your team after the second game of the season is top of the table, are you going to start thinking that's how it is? We're 69th at the moment. The season's just started. There's a lot to play for. There's going to be twists and turns, but we've done this before. We know exactly where this is I say exactly, we could be surprised at things, but we know a lot more than a lot of other people know about how this space works out. And there's a lot of
Mm.
people who know us who are actually talking to us without giving too much away, have known us for years and actually understand that, okay, they didn't think about Bitcoin treasuries, a lot of
Mm.
these players beforehand. Now they see there's Bitcoin treasuries and it's a thing. And all of a sudden, we're just using our expertise and experience to actually forge our way through this market. And these are the crypto guys, these are the OGs who've been watching this for a while. So in answer to your question, it's too early to look at a chart and make anything of it. The only thing I would say is of benefit is it actually gives a good indication of how many people are coming into this space. And I think you're going to find that will evolve and develop. Not talking about the people at the top in the top
Yeah, that
10.
list is going to become a much larger list, I think. Yeah.
I think, well, I mean, there's going to be a point where a lot of that list is going to be irrelevant,
Mm.
because some people might not even get off the starting blocks. But the point is, you might have different divisions coming up as well. It's too soon. It's far too early
Mm.
to actually look at this. But it's all part of the fun, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, and I suppose people like to relate these things to kind of quantum's a way of measuring it.
Mm.
But it's like the start of the season. I hope, and expect us to differentiate ourselves in that way, and also with the other things we're doing. So I think you'll see some excitement there as well.
I mean, you say it's too soon, and I get that as well. And I mean, I think you only
Early. It's early.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you're 182 Bitcoin from probably what was it, a couple of Bitcoin
We
5 or 6 months ago, even was it?
But no, we I think when we started the Treasury, which was around the time of our first raise or whatever, end of May, five. Yeah,
Mm.
we just got to build it up. Just for
Yeah.
grateful for the we're grateful that now at this time we have the potential and opportunity to buy. Every time we buy Bitcoin, I'm so grateful that we've got it, you know, because the other thing that people are looking at is, when people look at this MNAV model, I think that model is going to change and people start looking at other things that will factor into it as well because it's early days. But it sort of works at the moment. Everyone's got to have something to measure value for. We've got other investments as well as we might want to touch on later.
Mm.
But the point being that there's a lot more to this than just that quantum. We're grateful that we buy Bitcoin. We're getting it at 140 and $115,000. 2 years ago, that would have sounded nuts. In 2 years' time, it's going to look so cheap from our perspective of
Yeah.
of the way things are going. And that's the belief. You've got to have faith in it. So I'm grateful that we can get in now. That's really the point. And you also, I think there's an expectation in the space for things to happen. They have happened very quickly, like lightning speed. But this is a long game. This is a long game. In any other investment I've always looked at it in terms of years. If I get lucky and I get out early, so be it. But this Bitcoin is the next 4 years in this space is really, we're in the meat of it now.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you mentioned earlier about, you guys have actually got a decade of experience in this digital
Yeah.
asset space. And I don't think the market really talks about this, but you do have other investments in the
Yep.
Web3 and DeFi space.
Yeah.
And I see that one of those, the Yellow Network, has recently announced its token sale.
Yeah.
What's your investment in Yellow then, and how, or the Yellow Network, and how could that play out?
Yeah, it's actually just it's in the process of it. It's a private sale at the moment. Not a private sale, sorry. It's a Reg D sale in the US.
Mm.
So it's compliant. We kind of don't talk to. Well, it's not we don't talk about it. We're kind of an events driven as a company, and
Mm.
so when we've got something to say, we put out an announcement. We put out a regulatory announcement. And those who follow us closely see what's going on with Yellow Network, and they've just, as I said, they're in the process of a sale. But the launch, which is when the token gets onto an exchange or multiple exchanges, is
Mm.
when we can articulate the value of our investment. And it's a hidden gem in a way. I mean, it's not that we're keeping it hidden. We if we've got anything substantial to say, we will announce it to the market. But it is something that a lot of people are particularly following us and watching how much Bitcoin we buy, are not really interested in anything else we do. There's a lot of people who have been investors and following us and are very excited about what we're doing. So we just really think that, the stuff that, when we can announce things that actually will, you know, talk clearly about the events and what's happened, that's when everyone's got to sit up and pay attention to it,
Mm.
because that's the point where I think people will start looking at another metric to value us at. And I must tell you, just in this space generally, to be compliant in the UK and for us to actually operate under current FCA rules, you can't just be a company with a bucket of Bitcoin. And then, even though investors look at the metric, they look at how
Mm.
much, Bitcoin you've got compared to how many shares outstanding. That's all fine for their purposes. Regulation is very clear here. There are going to be ETNs, exchange traded instruments that are going to be permitted from, I think, October 8th. And
Yeah.
that will shake the market up, because those will be clearly proxies, trackers referencing crypto as pots of digital commodities, whatever they want to refer to them at. And we will differentiate ourselves because we will have our treasury under our, with our policy and strategy,
Mm.
and as a separate division, and also our other investments and activities as well. Um,
Mm.
so that's when the market is going to get a little bit more clearer once these new products and these new instruments start becoming available to retail investors, and you sort of move from a sort of a two-dimensional world to a three-dimensional world, and that's where we see all these other things, these bells and whistles coming in.
Mm.
So I think, I'd urge people, we're not going to give too much away at the moment, because that's our competitive edge. But you've got to investors, if there's a message takeaway, they've got to think out of the box. You know, if 6 months ago in the UK, the idea of a Bitcoin treasury company would have seemed nuts. I
Mm.
mean, maybe
Yeah.
those who've been following it in the States, they would have got it. But everyone who's seen these things land and launch into what the hell's going on. So they're in this stage of shock and confusion, and they're gradually getting used to what these represents. But once we start metamorphosizing in terms of actually what can be done, that's when you're going to see you've got to start thinking outside the box. So a little bit of intrigue. Sorry, I can't give more away, but we've got, I think down to our digital asset experience, there's secret sauce in there. And,
Yeah.
a little bit like Colonel Sanders won't give his recipe away. But just people, if us buying Bitcoin is enough at the moment, then that's fine, for giving investors that message. But we're, drawing our own
Yeah.
experience, we're made for this business.
Okay. Well, it sounds like an exciting space. Thanks very much for joining us today, Malcolm. And I look forward to chatting to you again in the near
Yeah,
future.
very happy to. Thanks a lot.